Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Enlightened Masculinity. We're very excited to have back Danji. Danji is a tantric massage expert and an intuitive healer. I also have with me my co-host, Akash Inti. I'll intro him in a second. I'm your host, Yogi Chris, PhD, founder of Ninth Limb Yoga, co-host, by the way. Akash is the co-host today. Also, every day, really. But last episode, it was just me, so I did it solo. Made sure I still had the chops. I could still do it, so did it well. Anyway, I'm Yogi Chris, founder of Ninth Limb Yoga. This podcast is hosted by Ninth Limb Yoga, so that's hashtag Ninth Limb. And it's a new path to the same mountaintop, emphasis on communication. I teach this brand of yoga around the world, and I have many books and many podcasts about it. I also have a PhD in the human universities, and so that's what I'm bringing to you today. We have a co-host, Akash Inti Katakam from Montclair, New Jersey. He's a biotech research analyst and a registered yoga teacher, starting his yoga following there in Montclair, New Jersey, called the Rising Suns. And welcome, Akash. I'll let Akash do any intro to Danji. You know him really well, so I'll hand it over to you, Akash. You're muted, brother.
Yes, super excited to be here today and to be talking about this topic, a topic that means quite a bit to me. And with that, I'd like to introduce Danji. So Danji has a pretty spectacular YouTube following, and really, as noted, as Yogi Chris noted, is a tantra expert. So he's given over 500 tantric massages, anywhere from kind of energy healing to very intimate sessions themselves. He is a man who's experienced, I guess, the normal life, as I like to put it, and then has transitioned towards more of a spiritual life. And so this is kind of something I've been very interested in, and to kind of really hear his perspective. So Danji, with that, I'd like to, I guess, delve a little bit into what your transition was like, kind of before this spiritual awakening itself, and if you could talk a little bit about your experience there,
okay,
and what you experienced.
Very good question. I can start from the very beginning. I was always a very strange child. I could watch for hours and hours just staring into nothingness. And then when school started, I felt it was kind of like a prison. I couldn't put my hand on it, but it was just pure prison. And that just continued. And then I kind of, my life went into that kind of, that mode, that I wanted to have huge success, huge ambitions. I wanted to have the largest internet company in the world. And that ambition was really consuming me, and I was completely identifying with those thoughts. And that went on for 37 years. So I was 37 years old, and I became more and more frustrated because I wasn't having the success that I thought that I should be having. The talent was there, everything was there. And then I had some changes in my life. And then I was already interested very much in breathing, exercising, like you guys do, like pranayama, all this stuff, mantras. I was doing that, and I didn't know really why. It just came up, and I felt like it's something that I want to do, and I was playing with those energies without knowing really what they do. I didn't even know what really yoga was. And then at some point, I found Muji on YouTube, and he's that spiritual Advaita Vedanta teacher. And I didn't know why I was watching him. I just felt something very authentic about him. And I was watching him for 1 year, probably every day, 1 or 2 hours on average, watching his videos. And then after 1 year, there was like this, what I call kickback now. It's really the seeing that the thoughts which you are, the emotions which you are, the body which you are, is not something that you need to identify with. You can just be in complete silence and stay in that silence. And then a week later, after that awakening, where I realized I'm just the consciousness observing everything, then the intuition came to me to start doing massages. And after the third massage, I realized, and my clients realized, that I've this tremendous gift of releasing emotions from the body, old emotions that might be even generations old. And with that, my life completely changed, because I learned about the energies. I learned that I'm not crazy. Everybody else thought I'm super crazy, and I need to go to psychiatrists and psychologists and whatnot. And they would try to use the kind of the theories that they have and push me through those kind of squares of what they read in some book, and that just didn't work with me. It made me worse, kind of. And the awakening, I understood that every concept that society puts out there is not what we truly need. What we truly need is the awakening, so we can disidentify with everything, and then you let everything happen. You let the universe decide what happens next. You take yourself as person completely out of the equation. And anytime you put yourself back into the equation as person, the universe will show you that's not the way to go. And then you hit a certain blockage if you use ego, like if you were using, for example, black magic, law of attraction, any kind of right-sided ego directed, manipulation of reality, of what you see. The universe will always show you at some point that's where your limit is, because then you need to go into pure love. And so anytime I thought I'm stopping with the massages, the universe would carry me another person, I would learn something new. And just last week, it was tremendous. It was just the ability to basically help someone without touching them and make their fears disappear and make them awaken to complete silence without touch. That just happened last week for the first time since I started. And I never thought that something like that could even exist. So anytime I let the universe take control, new revelations come up, new intuitions come up. And that has been my path for the last 4 years, just letting everything to the universe, even the way I make money, the way I meet someone. And sometimes intuition tells me to do a certain thing. So intuition could tell me do a certain video, might tell me to put up a certain event. But if I don't feel it in my heart, and even if it doesn't make logical sense, I don't do it. So
And I'm gonna need to cut you off because there's so much.
Sure.
I don't know how to talk about all these things. You like 17 different topics, Danji. This idea of like first of all, it sounds like a very kind of submissive, a very surrendering, surrender to everything as a path of enlightenment, and with a little bit of downplay of left-hand path yoga, of the black magic, of the manifesting, of specific rituals for boons, and appealing to the energies of the universe, to cooperating with them necessarily, versus like a surrendering and submitting to them and letting the energies flow through you, and you're just a clear vessel and you don't carry any ego, and you're just but then you're talking about intuition, and when your intuition speaks to you, or when you hear your intuition. And so I'm really curious, and then you're talking about like your intuition, and do you feel it in your heart? And so you've identified 3 or 4 different objects here as like the origination of the intuition, like the intuition is speaking to you. So I mean, this is like a deeper question. Probably you'd be like, just watch 2 or 3 hours of Muji every week for the next year, and you'll get all these answers. So I'm curious about like, from where is the intuition coming? Why does it matter that your heart feels it or not? And then you were talking about how the universe will show you if you're like going on the wrong path, or how using black magic, or using, the reason why I harp on that is because communication is black magic, like words and thinking is black. So just to communicate about black magic is black magic in itself. It's a weird paradox. But so like, from where does the intuition come from, and why does it matter that your heart resonates with it or not?
Oh, okay. First off, it's something really that once you recognize it for yourself, there's like no space anymore to fight with it. It would be like as if someone told you beat your child, you just wouldn't do it, no matter what. So it's kind of like that kind of like information. You can't really fight with it. You feel it. And the thing is that it comes from the top, basically. Whereas fear emotions come from the bottom, from the lower third chakras. Those are the ones trying to pull you kind of down into the fear mode. And the intuition really comes from the top and goes to your heart chakra. By the way, one of the absolute most fantastic mantras you can do, and anyone listening right now, they should try this for 10 to 20 minutes, is the mantra AUNG, Aung. Om. And the way it goes is that you breathe in from the top of your head to your heart, then resonate with Om back to your third eye. And then before you breathe in, you imagine that the energy goes up again over your head and you breathe again to your heart. Om. And that will put you in a completely different state of no thinking. And it's especially good for people with a strong depression, because it helps them to get out of that cycle of negative emotions. And that will open up the energy also to a Sahasrara, so the intuition can flow in. Yeah.
So specifically, sorry. So why is it essential that where does you're saying the intuition comes from the crown? Is that
Yes.
And then why is it essential? Why is it important if it resonates with your heart or not?
Okay. Well, the heart is kind of, you could say it like this. I would say like you have like this infinite beauty of light, and your heart is kind of like that space, that spot where that light breaks into like an infinite prism of colors. It's like the beauty of your beingness is kind of like shining through your heart, if you want to call it like that. And once you turn that key inside of your heart and it just that opens up, then you shine really through in all your colors. And that is only possible if you're outside of fear-based fear-based acting. And the reason why it's so important is because it's really the core of your beingness. Everything else is kind of like a tiny part of the spectrum, but there it's your core. It's kind of you're really at home. You're the lighthouse, you're the anchor, you're the when I was younger, I always thought that life happens outside of me. Like I would say, for example, Fridays I need to go out to have a life. Fridays I need to go out to go party or something and meet people. And if I wasn't doing that, I thought I'm missing out. And when you are coming from that heart space, you recognize you for yourself are the center of life. There is no nothing that you can miss. And that's kind of that's what the heart energy does for you. It's kind of like you become the center of, but not an egoistic kind of center. It's just you feel you don't miss out because you are in that love.
Interesting. So, Danji, I'm sure you talked about this in the earlier episode itself, but for anyone who's, I guess, very interested in at a very high level, what is Tantra itself, and what does it mean to you, I guess?
Okay. Tantra for me is just a word. I've never studied Tantra. That's very important to say, because I talk to some people who have very profound traditional understanding of Tantra. For me, it's just a marketing term. I just used it for marketing. Tantra for me, in terms of what I do, is that I feel the blockages in either the female or the male side, the left or right side, and I open that up. The advantage of going to a male tantra massage person, if you are female, is that that person can give a lot of yang, whereas yang energy, so it kind of balances out. When you go as a man to a woman masseuse, then you receive the yin energy, so that balances out. So it's always good to go to the other gender, kind of, so you kind of balance out the energies for a while, so that the energies can open up and revelations can come in. Because what really truly happens is that energies open up by every session more and more and more and more, until revelations come in by themselves. And then you can really make the life changes. Because just a session without life changes, without understanding why everything is happening, why it's happening, will get you back into the same situation. So it's very, very important that you kind of make the client understand, or the person, the patient understand, that that they need to make a life change, and they need to understand where the blockages are actually coming from. And it's not always easy, because sometimes the ego comes in and says like, I don't really believe in that stuff. But I also had many sessions where people come and say, I don't believe it. And when they had the second session, they're like, wow, shit. Yeah. So it's a very beautiful way of helping people to learn about themselves and really grow and see that they have the power to change.
Well, could a person, you're talking about the yang energy,
Mm-hmm.
from the male to the female via the massage. And
Mm-hmm.
of course, my girlfriend would never go to a male massage therapist ever, not while she's with me anyway. And she gets that yang energy from me. So I'm wondering, what's your opinion about, if women are needing the healing, if they're needing understanding, if they're needing blockage removed, and they're needing some balancing yang energy in their life, how essential is it for them to just find a good man for themselves?
Very, very good question. And the first thing that I would love to give, especially since you're in a partnership, I don't know if you know this. I found it out by message from intuition from higher. Is I did this with a lot of people. It works fantastic. Everybody try it out. Is once you have a partner, do what I call chakra breathing. That means you lie, for example, in spoon position, and you suck in the energy from the root chakra. Yes, from your root chakra in yours when you inhale, and as you exhale you give back that energy, and every you do both of you do this at the same time. So you get the energy from her root chakra while she's getting yours, and then you return that energy when you breathe out, and you do this for a while, and then you go through each of the main 7 chakras. And as you do that, you basically open up all the blockages and you connect on all the frequencies. Because what happens a lot in sex life nowadays is that it just stays in the first 2 chakras. So it's kind of like just like connecting sacral chakra and that's it. But once you connect all of them, especially the solar plexus, because nowadays women are so much in their Pingala energy and their assertive energy that they feel like they cannot let go of control. So a lot of women have intense blockages in the solar plexus. And when you do the breathing there and also in the heart chakra, then you kind of help her open up everything. And you help yourself, of course, as well. And what is really, really important is also the topic of masturbation, is that you realize that most of the time as you masturbate, you're actually abusing yourself. You're abusing your own energy. So it's better to learn this chakra breathing stuff and learn to use that energy in a different way. It's not that easy, of course, but as you, like I said before, when you feel an impulse, observe it with pure consciousness and ask yourself, am I that impulse or am I observing that impulse? And then you can kind of let go of any kind of obsession, might it be porn or anything. I'm right now, for example, at that level where I feel I'm missing out if I'm just pleasuring myself. So I feel like I really want that heart connection with someone else. I don't, once you reach that kind of connection, you don't want to go back to anything else.
Hell yeah, that's the attraction of the relationship. I'm a big fan of like engaging in the relationship and um, using the relationship as the vehicle to awaken more and more of my subconscious, more of my
Excellent.
behaviors, and observing and awareness of that, and pinging it back and forth off the one girl or multiple. I like multiple because it's easy to get distorted when you're one-on-one, and
Mm-hmm.
both people are always right. If it's just one-on-one, both people are always right. But if there's 2 and 1, then I'll look at it. If 2 girls are telling me, hey, you're too aggressive, I'll look at it. If one girl is telling me I'm too aggressive, I'm like, just to you, what do you know? Just one. And, but definitely that's a big check for me. So I want to hand it over to Akash, and I'm sure he's got something.
Yeah, a couple things that you brought up in this study was, I guess, the whole idea of intuition itself. So can you dive a little bit more into that as to, I guess, what does intuition mean, or how are you defining this term?
Okay, I said it in the first part already a little bit. I didn't make it short and very clear. There is the gut feeling. Everybody knows gut feeling. That's mostly fear-based. Intuition is not fear-based. And a gut feeling is like you have two options and you can decide between the two. I could do this, or even other options. Intuition is like, you know, very, very, very clearly, without a doubt, that this is what you want right now. For example, when I said I wanted to leave a specific country and live in another one, I knew that there was no other option. I knew I needed to leave. And as you wait, especially as you stay in silence as observer, there comes a moment when it's very, very clear. I'll give an example with Eckhart Tolle. He when he's living, if I remember correctly, when he was living in UK, his kind of intuition told him to go to the United States, and he let it go. And as he stayed in silence, the intuition came up again. And I think as it came up a couple of times, he then made the decision, okay, now I'm leaving. So it's kind of also something that keeps repeating, that keeps coming up because it kind of wants to happen, if you want to say it like this. It's very, very, very hard to put into words, but it comes naturally, that sense of intuition, as you learn complete silence, as you learn to just observe the impulses, the body, the emotions, and the thoughts. And yeah, and then nothing happens too soon and nothing too late. So while others are already like going crazy and saying, hey, you should take care of that, you kind of feel like, no, this has some time, this has some space. And it kind of it kind of grows beautifully. It's kind of like, it's as if you were trying, most of people try to like push how fast a plant has to grow. You know, they try to make the tree grow faster. So with every decision, but once you recognize that consciousness always is, and it cannot be more or less, consciousness is always the same, and you are consciousness, then you realize that running after things or trying to achieve things, or trying to get things which have no substantial importance to consciousness, then you realize it's all kind of like a fake construct of our society. And we were talking about how that influences how people act also in relationships. So we kind of push that projection onto our partners. And that puts a tremendous amount of stress on relationships, even on the dating. And at some
Can I
point, a
jump in for a
spiritual
second?
awakening.
Could I jump in
I'm
for a
sorry?
quick second? Could I
Yeah,
jump in for?
sure.
You know, I really resonate with this idea of moving forward in your actions without fear, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, moving away from fear-based judgments about just in life, and you know, if your intuition is not in this internal argument, and so it's
Mm-hmm.
to be a little bit void of emotional baggage. It's like a clear message that's not heavy, and it's
Mm-hmm.
you could say because it comes from the top, right? And but I'm so fascinated by it because, you know, I have a teacher. It's very similar to how you talk about Muji, where I was watching the for a long time, and it just became like I didn't even realize I was doing it, and it was happening, and then I adopted the philosophy, and it was like I was already deeply internally in resonance with the message. And
Mm-hmm.
teacher, he talks a lot about. He uses a very harsh language a lot of times. People have had a problem with him. He cusses all the time and uses shit like that. But you know, slave religions and the beliefs of how you would control the masses. Let's say if you were like in ancient Roman times or anything like that, if basically you were outnumbered 10-1 by the slaves, like how do you, like, and you don't have guns or anything, you have maybe a spear or something, but you're overpowered. Like you got to control the minds of those people if you
Mm-hmm.
control them at all, because they would just overpower you. And one of the ways is to give them a religion that it's what you would call like a slave religion, is something that would say, don't go for your goals because that's bad. Don't go for your dreams. That's bad. Don't have ambitions because that's going to lead to suffering. That's bad. And
Mm-hmm.
as a yogi, I see some of the validity in, you know, it will lead to suffering. But, you know, when I hear the message repeating as you're saying it, so I'm wondering your take on, where do you see going for your goal? Like, would we have any really high achieving, quote, achieving people on planet Earth if they were to adopt your philosophies? Or
Mm-hmm.
see the
Okay.
place of really going for big and lofty goals in the life of a human?
Okay. I understand completely what you're saying. I think achievement is, first of all, as I will quote Sadhguru from this. He said, without joy, there's no achievement. So you need, first of all, you need kind of joy for achievement to make sense. And you need to be joyous first, and then you can worry about the rest, kind of. And achievement is kind of like a dead end. We don't see it yet. We will see it once the planet is basically exhausted from its resources, and everything has a cost. So the way we're kind of working with Earth right now is we're really extinguishing a lot of the resources that it offers. And so success is really, in terms of like long-term view, you will see that actually the way we're going is not so successful. But on a personal side, of course, you can be hedonistic and say, well, at least I have my car and I have my things and all this stuff. But when you go from the perspective of joy, you realize as pure consciousness, you don't need anything. You don't need anything, absolutely nothing. And from the perspective of joy, you can actually live with others very harmoniously. And that's really the idea, because as soon as you move into kind of more the ego and achievement kind of area, then you create suffering. And that is that I think is in a sense a huge problem. If you look, I don't want to go too much in politics and government, but if you look at how much suffering industrial countries are causing to other countries, like I said, I don't want to go too much into detail, but you see that it's not uh, the argument that the way we're right now achieving and creating joy is kind of very, very weak if you look at how much suffering is being caused, with bombing and all this kind of stuff, So it has a cost, this achievement, and we might not see it, but others are really feeling the effect. Like take a company like Nestle, who's pumping, water away from others who need it. So it's yeah, it's really, in my opinion, it's a dead end. And once you recognize that this maya, this duality that we're living, is an illusion anyway, that we keep living for 80 years and then we move to the next experience, and at some point you're going to have to face your death, I mean the death of the body anyway, that it's better to live that illusion already. You don't have to wait that long. And then you don't need to go with the suffering of what others have or what you had in the past. It's kind of like you're just in the now, you're joyous, and you share that joy, and you do what you need to do at a very specific moment. So you help one person, you have one person there, and that's enough. You make a person laugh, you share good feelings, and that's all you need to do. And if everybody does that, then we will definitely also have a very, very nice, beautiful earth, if you want to call it
So
like
Dante,
that.
I
And one
wanna,
thing also,
yeah,
just one short thing, is Eckhart Tolle said something very nice. He said innovation, the actual source of innovation is silence.
I like that. So I want to end this episode on one last piece of advice or one idea you'd like to give to the audience, if you will. What's one thing that has really come to you and that you
Mhm.
the listeners and the audience of Enlightened Masculinity to know? And from there, I think we'll
Okay.
start closing up the episode itself.
Okay, thank you very much. I think the absolute important thing in life is to recognize spiritual awakening, and to do that, the best thing is to listen to the masters that resonate with you the most. I would say Ramana Maharshi, Papaji, Sri Nisargadatta, then Muji, Eckhart Tolle. If you pick any one of those that resonate with you the most, because some people like one or the other more, and you keep listening to it, you will see that you open up a completely new world, and you will see that it is actually pure truth that they're speaking, and that will completely change everything. And it in the beginning it might not seem like much, but at a certain point you will recognize that you want to really step out of that carousel of egoistic interactions and really want to be just in your heart, in your intuition as pure consciousness. And then you realize that's the only thing that you've ever wanted in your whole life.
Well, Danji, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it. A couple things I want to note are, what would be the best way for anyone to, I guess, find you on social media, whether this be YouTube?
I guess I'm a lot on Facebook, not so much on Instagram. So if anybody wants, just put in Danji on Facebook, and they can, or YouTube Danji. And I also do a lot of personal responding on videos. If there are any questions,
now it's a complex name on YouTube. It's not just Danji. It's like Danji ASMR Awakened. What is it? What's the whole YouTube channel?
Danji ASMR Spiritual Awakening.
Spiritual Awakening. ASMR, everybody. Danji, DANJI space ASMR space Spiritual Awakening. You'll find it there.
Correct. Well, thank you very much for having me. Actually, the first interview I ever gave.
Oh yeah. I mean, you really well spoken and really pleasant. I really appreciate your perspective. It's obvious you're well studied and well practiced. I agree with that final key point, by the way. I mean, there were many things. I tried not to be too contentious, but that final key point, man, when you find that, what Yogananda called the Christ consciousness, when he finds that identifying with the seer within and the observer, the observation of your life from within, all other ecstasies and blisses just seem irrelevant.
Yes.
And then in my method, it's achieve your goals and maintain that as you go for your goals. It's quite an experience. You can be the observer at the base of the mountain, or you could be the observer at the top of the mountain. And both cases, it's bliss, serenity. But at the top of the mountain, it's pretty cool too. It's a little added flavor. So
there I can add something. It's that's fantastic what you said right now, because everybody on this planet, every reincarnation has its own soul mission. And so it's very important for us, instead of projecting our own soul mission onto others and judging them, it's best to look at yourself, your own soul mission, and accept other soul mission, even for our children. So if you have a child or parents, accept they have their own soul mission, I'll let them go their way. That's the best way.
That's beautiful. I really appreciate you sharing your opinions with us, Danji. And everybody, if you're catching this on iTunes, leave us a comment, leave us a review, share it with your friends. If you've got any questions, send it into Akasha Eye, and we'll get you on a future podcast as far as answering your questions. And thank you both for showing up. We'd love to have you back in the future, Danji. And we'll get you some clips of this for your YouTube if you'd like. And
yes.
For setting this up, brother. And so
I love you guys.
Yeah. And lastly, if you guys are listening to this as well, check out in the show notes, we have the Enlightened Masculinity Facebook group where we post some content weekly. So ranges from anything on meditation practices to how to socialize better, to you name it. So we cover many different things in here. So encourage you to check that out. Thank you guys
find
so
that?
much.
What do I need to put in Facebook to find that?
I'll send you the link to it afterwards.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's called Enlightened Masculinity, the Facebook group.
Okay.
Awesome.
Super.
Both. Namaste.